Welcome back to another episode of Life in the Stands podcast. This is the 75th episode of the podcast. Jake and Zach, super excited to be back with you. I want to thank everyone for watching and listening. Remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're on. We have a quick takes episode today. We know everyone appreciates those, so we're going to each give 3 quick takes, and then we have some exciting news in the middle of the episode as well, so stick around for that. Bender, let's jump right in. Let's hear your first quick take. The NFL season has been wild so far.
Yeah, talk about wild. I never would have thought that I would say that Bryce Young may actually be the Carolina Panthers' future franchise quarterback. I think that their coaching staff kind of needed some time to figure themselves out, for one. Andy Dalton stepping in for a couple of games, I think, benefited them in realizing like how much patience they need with Bryce Young, as well as Bryce Young getting his confidence back up. So I think the way he even competed against the Kansas City Chiefs in that game a week or two ago was also impressive. I think that's promising for a very young team, and especially for a guy who was in the shitter for a while.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back a couple of weeks, you would not have said Bryce Young has any chance to start, maybe even for the rest of the season, especially when Andy Dalton came out firing like he did. So interesting to see what the Carolina Panthers are going to do moving forward because it feels like now there's kind of almost some momentum going into the end of the season, but you still want to have that high draft pick. So you don't want to win too many games, kind of one of those situations going on. But good for the Carolina Panthers to win some games. Let's stick with another kind of bad team, but a bright spot on that team. Brock Bowers is currently 4th in the NFL in receiving yards, like overall for all players. He's going absolutely crazy. If he continues on this pace, he's averaging like a little over 70 yards per game. He would end this season with 1,252 yards. It would beat the all-time record for a rookie tight end. Mike Ditka had 1,076, so it beat the all-time record for a rookie tight end by like 200 yards. And it would also rank 10th all-time in any season by a tight end in the NFL. So Brock Bowers, in his rookie year, is proving already to the Raiders in the NFL, like he's a generational talent. Like that guy could break some records. He could do some things.
Yeah, damn. And I thought Sam Laporta had a good year last year as a rookie with the Lions. Brock Bowers has a chance to be maybe even like a top 3 tight end at this pace. Rob Gronkowski on a podcast that he has with Julian Edelman actually mentioned that he has a chance to be better than him. And
Yeah,
that's a lot of credit towards a rookie, considering that Gronk won 1,000 championships at this point. So
you
I,
can
I
see
think
it.
that's crazy.
You can see it. It's wild what Brock Bowers is doing. I mean, to come out here in your rookie year and put up a season that would place you 10th all time on the tight end receivings list.
Can
Okay,
I can
welcome
I
to the
say
league.
without a quarterback too?
Yeah, with rotating quarterbacks even.
Yeah, let him get some chemistry down with somebody, anybody at this
Should
point.
hurt.
That'd be kind of dirty. But
Should hurt
anyway,
Brock Bowers. Okay, all right. On to your second quick take, Bender.
don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, but we're gonna jump right into that ugly ass jacket that you're wearing. I think the Steelers are not Super Bowl contenders, and you want to talk about contenders or pretenders? They are pretenders.
Ooh.
I know they're winning a lot of good games. They have to play the Eagles and the Chiefs yet, I believe, this season. So we'll see what they're made of in those games, and you'll see what I think of the Chiefs as well coming up here. But I just don't think the Steelers have enough. I think they need one more year. They're going to re-sign Russell Wilson, hopefully Najee, because Najee's having a pretty good year himself. And I think they need to add to that wide receiver core. Pickens is good, but I don't think him being the guy is going to help that team in the clutch in the playoff situations that they need to win in. I think they need another guy that's kind of like a T. Higgins maybe next year to step into that role.
Yeah, I mean, T. Higgins would be nice in the offseason. Not going to complain about that. Russell Wilson, I do think we re-sign him this offseason. I think he probably gets 35 or 40 million per year, maybe for 2 or 3 years, because that's what quarterbacks are worth. I'll get into that a little bit later as well. Um, George Pickens is currently 8th in the NFL in receiving yards total. So I think he's proving he is a legit number one option in the NFL. I understand the argument about receivers a little bit too, but I always point back to like the Steelers are always the Steelers. We're 4-3 against 500 or worse teams, and we're 5-0 against 500 better than 500 teams. We beat all the good teams. We play up to the competition. So I'm like when it gets to the playoffs, that gives me a lot of hope. And then also in terms of the division, if we beat the Browns We beat the Ravens. We win the division. We can lose every other game this season. If we win those two games, we're division winners, and we host a playoff game. So I feel good about the Steelers. Maybe not Super Bowl contenders this year, but I think we break the playoff win drought.
I agree. And people don't know this conversation, but you and I talked the other day about who the best matchup for the Bills might be, or who the Bills don't want to see in the playoffs. And I said the Steelers because they're really good against scrambling quarterbacks. And what does Josh Allen do? And you see what they've done to Lamar Jackson, of all people. So we'll see.
And Jane Daniels this year already too. I mean, and that's like I'm not that concerned for Jalen Hurts either. I'm more concerned about Saquon Barkley, honestly, because the run defense has been a little suspect since the Giants game. But before we get into my second quick take, we are going to promo a series that's coming up on TikTok. Actually, the first one drops today. The top 5 edge rushers in the NFL so far this year. Micah Parsons was our 5th best edge rusher. And that jumps into some even more exciting news that we have coming up in the podcast next week.
Yeah, very big news for next week's podcast. Please stay tuned for next week. We release on Thursday. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We have Mr. Parsons himself, Micah Parsons' father, is going to be on our podcast, on our show, give you a little bit of insight about his personal life, Micah's personal life, and kind of how that relationship has grown.
Yeah, so we're super excited for that. Remember to tune in next week. Like Jake said, we are on Thursdays. That will be posted Thursday night at some point once we get that edited up and ready to send out. But super excited to talk with Mr. Parsons. Like Jake said, once in a lifetime opportunity. So that should be really great. With that, let's jump back into our quick takes bender. Our second quick take, my second quick take. I think Hard Knocks, and I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks, but it is showing culture in the NFL. And I think in an age where social media is blowing things up and you have a lot more eyes into everything that all the players and the teams and everything that's going on, I think it's showing more and more that like solid coach, solid GM, solid culture, like those things really matter. Like continuity in the NFL, Lions, Steelers. Like when you think of the really solid culture teams, even like I don't know if I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks. The Steelers and the Ravens meetings versus the Browns and the Bengals meetings. It was like, whoa, okay, like yeah, these are like there's an like it's pretty easy to see why two teams are perpetually in the playoff hunt, having winning seasons, and two teams are hot and cold, off and on, high expectations, low results, whatever it is. So I'm
Yeah,
thinking like culture is more important in the NFL than ever.
I don't want to say it 100% is in correlation with being a playoff team or a successful team for that matter, but majority of the time it kind of seems that way. If you think about all the successful teams that you mentioned in that, and then you go ahead and look at what the Bengals and the Browns are doing this year, and you look at their meetings compared to the
And
Steelers meetings, it's dramatic, like a dramatic drop off between those teams.
look at Harbaugh and what he's doing with the Chargers first year coming in, setting the tone, setting the culture. Look at both New York teams.
Hmm.
Look at the Jets and the Giants. So culture more important than ever in the NFL.
I agree, and Hard Knocks is doing a great job. Honestly, it's kind of entertaining.
Super
But
entertaining. Never thought they would get into the Steelers building. Love Mike Tomlin.
yes, sir.
Love it.
But let's go to another successful team that I want to talk about, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, they have 9 wins within like a 7 point differential. They've won games under, like I said, with a 7 point or less lead. They've won games with. And I just don't think that's going to be sustainable going into the playoffs. I think they will get bounced this year. And I know you are going to say don't doubt the Chiefs. I think this is the year to doubt them because, yes, good
Just the
teams pull
Chiefs.
out wins no matter how they play. Tough teams, playoff teams, successful teams will find a way to win. Until you play a team like the Bills that's going to drop 30 plus points on you because you can't score. Your defense is not going to uphold everybody.
Yeah, man, like exactly right. I'm gonna say the Chiefs is the Chiefs until the Chiefs ain't the Chiefs. But I, yeah, man, it's just hard to bet against them. And I think when it really comes down to it, that's a hallmark of a great team is being able to win close games by any rhyme or reason or fashion. And hey, when it gets to the playoffs, all bets are off. But realistically, with them, like they're on the path to the one seed. Let's say they lock up that one seed in the second round. They're going to play a lower seeded AFC team. They're going to play Denver, Houston, Chargers,
Maybe. Yeah, something in
right?
there.
And then in the championship game, it's going to be the Ravens again. It's going to be the Bills, the Steelers. Like, who's the scariest out of that bunch again? Like, they don't fear the Bills. They don't fear the Ravens.
If the Steelers somehow lock up the division, I believe they'd play the Ravens potentially as well, depending on how that like falls like into
So then
place.
maybe at that point, if you're dealing with the Steelers in the AFC Championship game, they might be the team that you're afraid to deal with the most if they've made it that far and have that momentum. Because the other two teams, you've beaten in that spot already consistently. But either way, if you're the Chiefs, who else is that scary for you in the AFC? And what's the likelihood you think that the Steelers are going to make it to that point? So we'll see. We'll see what happens when it all comes down to it. I do think that their record, they should have more than one loss. Will agree with that. But they're going to lock up that one seed, I think, at the same time because they are in the position they're in.
Hmm.
So, with the last quick take today, and then we'll wrap it up. Positional value, kind of going back to Hard Knocks. We saw Saquon Barkley leave the Giants, go to the Eagles. Contract values for running backs obviously were a big topic of conversation this last offseason. I think positional value is going to get reset again. And I think it's because you're seeing Saquon and Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs in years where running backs were not supposed to be that valuable. And all three of those teams are 8-win, 9-win, 10-win teams that went out and paid bigger money for a running back to fit into their system. And the teams that went out and signed quarterbacks to 50, $60 million per year contracts, Dak, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, none of those teams really are looking that successful right now. I think there's gonna be a reset again of kind of like team building and where the NFL cap is gonna be. That's gonna be interesting to watch in contract negotiations this offseason. I'm just excited to see it, and it's a little bit of a nerdier part of the game, but it changes year by year. And I think going into this year with how much chatter there was and how loud it was, and how this year has played out, I feel like a big pendulum swing the other direction coming. And it could, I mean, with all the free agents coming up this year, it could happen like right away.
I think there's another wrench to be thrown in there too. Like receivers are wanting paid as well. Like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, that whole situation in
Yeah.
Cincinnati caused a stir up before the season even started.
And Pickens is going to be in that mix now after this year. Now, like that, this is going to be his last year. Going into next year, he's going to want a new deal come next spring. So he's another name you can throw into the mix.
Yeah, and I agree. And that balance out is going to happen. I don't think it's all going to be like, okay, you're going to cut down the QB's money. It's going to go straight to the running back. I think it's going to get like spread out to running back and receivers,
Yeah.
potentially O line, potentially
Yeah.
because of how good the running games have been
Yeah. And I think
for these
back
playoff teams.
defensively too. I think corners and edges. I think like defensively, you're going to start to see some big contracts come out again too.
I agree, and it's kind of going to be interesting how the money gets distributed depending on the team. Like the
Mhm.
Cowboys are going to distribute that to Micah, and then like the Steelers are going to distribute it to Pickens, and then maybe like a little bit to Najee, but he's not top end money. Like it's
Right.
going to be so interesting to see what happens because Russell Wilson's not like a top three max quarterback paying guy
Right.
anyway,
Right.
but it might go to show and set an example for those other teams where it's like if you pay him, I don't know, random example, like 30 million a year instead of 50 million a year, where you can use that money elsewhere, and then
Yeah.
those guys paying 50 million a year, Cowboys, are not playoff teams, and the Steelers use their money for good reasons.
Right. Yeah. So that's what makes a good and a bad general manager, folks. That's the stuff right there. So how do you build a team? With that, thank you again, everyone, for watching and listening. This has been another episode of Life in the Stands. I want to remind everyone again, we have Mr. Parsons coming on the show next week. Super humbled and thankful he's willing to spend some time with us and super excited to talk with him. We'll see you on the next episode.